A farmer is getting ready to go fishing at night by the local lake somewhere in rural Thailand, while his neighbors are attempting to capture the frogs that the intense rain has driven away. Unexpectedly, the people locate a huge egg that seems to be moving from the inside very swiftly. However, they are unaware that a terrible creature is also traveling in their direction. Humans are preparing to depart the lake when they realize something is amiss because a huge monster suddenly materializes in front of them, howling angrily at the farmers and making them all cry in pain. The farmer's wife was eventually informed, and she hurried to the lake to find her husband right away. However, she only found the man's raincoat before she stared helplessly into the opaque water. Detective James, an experienced inspector, has chosen to take over this odd investigation after the local police were occasionally notified to this unfortunate incident. The man believes that the offender must have eventually vanished by using the water channels since he was surprised to observe the horrific wounds on the dead people, which could only have been produced by a large animal. Simultaneously, a young girl named May and her brother Ken are walking beside the lake on a nearby farm when she notices something strange, a huge footprint on the ground. Furthermore, the girl ultimately finds a huge egg in the marsh as well and chooses to bring it home to her family. As he gets ready for the biggest breakfast of his life, Ken notices this and compliments the girl right away. But because she is afraid of the monster that would eventually emerge from within, their older sister Lynn advises them to discard the egg immediately. As she waits for the beast to hatch from inside the shells, May drags the enormous egg towards the lake and flees from the people in rage. The girl is unaware that danger is already nearby since another lake monster is swiftly approaching her and consuming everything in the water. Lynn and her brother are searching the field for their younger sister at the same time, but when they finally arrive by the lake, they discover right away that the girl's possessions are in the water. This prompts Ken to head straight toward the lake in a desperate attempt to locate his younger sister, but Lynn soon recognizes that something is off when the lake monster viciously attacks her brother from behind. Fortunately, Ken escapes the water before the enormous monster kills him, but the ferocious creature soon starts attacking the farmers inside the field, sending everyone fleeing for their lives. But the hideous creature is obviously too swift for the fleeing humans, as it devours the victims like human pancakes and tosses them away like flying ragdolls. Ken and his sister eventually escape through a field of tall shrubs, but the villagers are forced to watch in utter terror as the monster kills everybody who is too slow to go. As the monster continues to devour the surviving farmers, this enables the people to flee from it. However, Ken starts experiencing excruciating pain from his wounds and starts seeing images of the monster in his head. Fortunately, Lynn is able to assist her brother in moving further, and they eventually get at a public highway while stopping a passing motorist. As they ultimately succeed in leaving this terrible location with their lives, this enables the people to board the pickup truck. The inhabitants are unaware, though, that the monster is still attacking humans and is getting ready to wreak even more havoc within a nearby city. Meanwhile, Lynn and her brother finally arrived in front of the hospital, and the medical staff promptly started attending to the patient's wounds. As Lynn starts to recount the horrifying event brought on by the lake monster that killed all of the farmers, the police captain soon receives word of the attack from his colleagues and swiftly finds the survivors. The captain, however, finds it difficult to believe Lynn's honest accounts of what transpired and ultimately chooses to return to the police station as if nothing had occurred. The people are completely unaware that the monstrous thing has already entered the population center and is pursuing everyone like prey while wreaking havoc in the streets as they flee in terror from the enormous beast. Detective James is eventually informed of this horrific incident, which prompts him to head straight toward the town center, but it is already too late when he sees multiple dead victims on the ground. The captain believes that the creature is utilizing the lake to hide from people following the attacks, and the police department is ultimately compelled to acknowledge the monster's existence after so many casualties inside their city. Because they intend to catch the monster at any costs, the man instructs all of his people to divide into two teams. But before the investigator and his teammates can move out, he gets another piece of bad news from them, which makes him head straight for the local high school. The father is compelled to immediately take the child inside his car as he attempts to catch up to the other police officers, since it turns out that James has a rebellious daughter named Pam who constantly makes trouble inside the school. While Ken is having a horrible nightmare in which he attempts to battle the lake monster in his dream, Lynn is simultaneously keeping watch over her unconscious brother inside the hospital. After being seriously injured by the creature, Ken soon discovers that he has somehow lost his ability to talk, but the guy miraculously awakens to reality and gives his sister hope once more. Even worse, Lynn observes that her brother's conduct has also drastically changed, as he appears to be thinking about something all the time. She is unaware, though, that Ken is also rapidly experiencing severe physical changes as he starts having hallucinations about the lake monster in the restroom. Surprisingly, Ken starts to see through the monster's eyes as the animal keeps murdering all the defenseless victims, suggesting that this also gave the guy a mental bond with the thing that attacked the farmers. This prompts the man to head outdoors and start writing on the paper as soon as possible, telling his sister that he is certain of the monster's precise location. Meanwhile, the police captain has reached the population center in an attempt to apprehend the ferocious animal. They were surprised, nevertheless, to see the female survivor hurrying in their direction and asserting that her brother could guide them to the ferocious beast at this precise moment. Eventually, the group chooses to follow the woman's brother, and they cautiously make their way toward the empty neighborhood, but Ken quickly begins sensing that the monster is hiding inside a nearby building. This enables the man to warn the humans of the creature's whereabouts, at which point the humans start attacking the monster with their bombs, resulting in enormous explosions. But the beast becomes even angrier as a result, and it soon starts attacking people and flinging them away like flying insects. Fortunately, the humans are able to encircle the monster from all sides at last, and they begin using their weapons to strike it and tether it inside their nets. Unexpectedly, Ken also starts to suffer from the attacks as the monster continues to take more damage from the humans, and the sister quickly realizes that her brother is somehow related to the monstrous creature. The woman immediately rushes towards the crowd, pleading with the officers to stop striking the animal and saying that it is also murdering her brother. When the police captain realizes that the guy has been injured in the exact same way as the ferocious creature, he is forced to confine the creature inside his car and give his troops orders to protect it from the irate crowds. The villagers, however, have no intention of allowing the monster to live on, and they start crowding the police officers and calling for the creature's destruction, endangering Ken's life in the process. James and his crew have simultaneously arrived at the opposite end of the lake, and they swiftly locate a huge egg along the shore. Furthermore, the investigator observes the enormous tracks the monster leaves behind, indicating that the beast must be nearby. Before the man can decide what to do next, one of the cops informs him that they have also located a survivor close to the lake, and it is soon discovered that the individual is actually Ken's lost younger sister. James eventually chooses to return to his car and start criticizing his disobedient daughter after being perplexed by how the girl can live for so long despite carrying the monster's egg. The public is unaware, though, that the other officers have spotted something terrifying within the lake, which soon turns out to be a monster the size of a building. James quickly hears gunshots coming from outside and runs to his pals to check what is going on, only to discover that the automobiles have big bloodstains on them. Fortunately, the man ultimately locates the lone surviving officer cowering inside the trunk. However, before anybody can speak, the detective spots a huge tail moving over the field, and the enormous lake monster appears behind the car, making James instantly escape for cover. But the dad soon discovers that his daughter is still in his car, so he uses the radio to warn the mother to flee from the monster that is coming. The situation gets worse when the gigantic beast is drawn to the automobile by the child's scent and the egg inside the car starts to rattle. Soon after, the monstrous creature slowly emerges next to the car window, causing Pam to scream in terror. The enormous animal then promptly recognizes the egg that was taken from its nest. The passengers inside the automobile are left utterly defenseless as a result, and the lake monster attacks the car nonstop in an attempt to reclaim its young. James immediately rushes forward to defend his daughter after realizing that she is in grave danger, firing many shots at the enormous creature. Nevertheless, this only makes the beast angrier, as it smacks its tail at the investigator, making the man flee in the opposite direction before plunging into the water. As the enormous monster is busy attempting to retrieve its young inside the car, the second officer notices this and tries to assist his friend by pulling out a large oxygen tank. Soon after, the monster starts attacking the car once more, eventually breaking through the glass and making the occupants scream in pain. Fortunately, the policeman is able to toss the oxygen tank in the direction of the enormous creature just before the humans are murdered. He then shoots the container, resulting in a massive explosion. But when the monster roars ferociously towards the officer, the guy is startled to realize that his strike was completely ineffective, and he hastily flees in terror. After successfully breaking down the car's door and eventually removing the egg from inside, the enormous beast is able to turn back towards Pam and use its jaws to remove its young. When Pam notices this, she immediately makes the decision to flee the car, but she soon discovers that the monster has been waiting for her the entire time when the woman finally makes it outside. Before shouting angrily at the human, the creature swiftly approaches the defenseless woman and throws its enormous claws on top of Pam. When James notices this, he quickly emerges from the water and shoots toward the closest oxygen tank in an attempt to save his only child. This triggers a tremendous explosion in front of the enormous monster, compelling it to let go of the woman. However, the adversary soon starts focusing on the investigator, roaring angrily in the direction of the man's face. Remarkably, rather than murdering the detective right away, the beast starts to hear the painful scream of the other captive monster and ultimately chooses to spare the officer before racing straight toward the city. This enables James to sprint in the direction of his daughter, attempting to carry her out of this area and straight to the closest hospital. However, James notices that his daughter is rapidly bleeding out from her several wounds before the people reach the town center, and the girl passes away in front of her father, leading the man to weep with grief. The citizens are unaware that a much larger enemy is moving towards the city as it continues to destroy everything in its path, while the police captain is attempting to stop everyone from attacking the lake monster inside the car and to save Ken from being killed in the process. Soon after, the enormous beast finds the lake monster's scream inside the car and roars angrily at all of the people. When everyone sees the building-sized monster in the distance, they immediately know they are in severe trouble and start running in the opposite direction. But soon after, the enormous creature closes in on the human population and starts looking everywhere for its kind, wreaking havoc on the streets. Soon after, the monster successfully traps a number of bystanders inside the bus by menacingly approaching them and making them all scream in pain. Remarkably, the creature only displays interest in saving its own species and eventually chooses to leave the truck rather than consuming every human in its enormous jaws. A couple aboard the bus soon notices this strange behavior and realizes that the monster is not there to harm people. They immediately hurry towards the police officers and tell the creature's genuine intentions to their leader. When the enormous creature starts to approach this area as well, the police captain immediately orders his troops to get out of the car because they made a grave error in catching the other lake monster. While everyone else is scrambling to board the buses in a last-ditch effort to leave the city, Ken understands that his infectious injuries prevent him from going home with his sister. As Lynn tries to dissuade her brother from leaving, she is closely following the man as he rushes towards the lake monster's car. But before he finally leaves his sister behind and enters the automobile carrying the lake monster, the man merely turns around to give the woman one final embrace. Soon after, the scream of the trapped monster starts to attract the larger creature's attention, diverting it from the throng and enabling the humans to flee the threat. In an attempt to entice the ferocious beast away from the population center, Ken spots this and starts driving the truck right away. Eventually, he passes in front of the enormous creature. Fortunately, the man's strategy appears to have been successful in getting the creature's attention, as he keeps luring the lake monster farther away from the city, ultimately sparing everyone. Occasionally later, the civilians who survived the monster's onslaught start to emerge from the buses, and Lynn eventually gets to see her long-lost sister as well. She gives the girl a quick embrace while crying. She is unaware, though, that the investigator is consumed by retaliation for the loss of his daughter and starts to suspect the young girl of having some sort of connection to the lake monster. Even worse, because he does not want anyone to know that the lake monster exists, the police captain wants the detective to never look into this case again. The guy eventually resigns from his position in the police force because he will not stop looking for the monster that killed his daughter, but the creature appears to have vanished entirely from human society along with Lynn's brother. 5 years later, Lynn's sister is now a teenager, but she still heads towards the lake as she always did. James, meanwhile, has grown significantly older and has gray hairs on his temples. The girl is unaware, meanwhile, that the former police officer has been pursuing her ever since the monster attacked. He ultimately finds her sitting suspiciously next to her farm animal at a nearby lake. Unexpectedly, James realizes right away that something is seriously off as a huge creature appears in front of the sheep and begins to eat it with its jaws. Furthermore, it seems like the small girl and the enormous creature have a tight bond since they eventually embrace like best friends without realizing James is watching them from the shadows. After accusing May of being the reason behind his daughter's death, the guy eventually finds the young girl inside her house. But before the man can finish speaking, a second lake monster leaps at him, attempting to kill him repeatedly. James, however, is able to burn the enemy's eyes, sending him flying like a ragdoll. Luckily, the man bounces back from the onslaught fast and chooses to set off his bombs in front of the opponent, giving him the upper hand right away while the monster is on the ground. James sees the sorrow in the girl's eyes as the man is ready to slay the ferocious creature, but a larger monster has already emerged by the lake. James ultimately chooses to spare the injured creature after realizing that seeking retribution will only make things worse for everyone and never bring back his own daughter. He then quietly walks to sit in the dark. Remarkably, the man chooses to discover the truth about the enigmatic creatures rather than exact more revenge on the monsters. The man is finally led into the wilderness by May, who indicates that he should enter the neighboring mountains. He is unaware, though, that the girl has already started exhibiting symptoms resembling those of her brother, as her body starts to change internally as well. James eventually succeeded in entering the mountains at the same time. As he cautiously makes his way deeper into the caverns, he is startled to discover a piece of bloody clothing that had belonged to Lynn's brother, who has gone missing. The man soon discovers that he has discovered an old temple where the inhabitants are obviously still worshipping the deity within as he starts to see lights inside the enigmatic cave. As a result, the man investigates the area even more and discovers that paintings of lake monsters adorn the walls, suggesting that ancient people revered the animals as gods. But James is abruptly stopped by something behind him before he can reach any conclusions, only to discover that the enormous monster has been waiting for him the entire time. So, what did you think of the film? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more. See you again soon.